SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Looking for an affordable new home? Wyndham Mobile Homes is what you need. Discover all our spacious models, perfect for every lifestyle. Your dream home is waiting. Visit Wyndham Mobile Homes in Corinth today or online at wyndham-homes.com.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this Friday, y'all. Yes, indeed. It's a bit warm out there today. And then it's going to get a little cooler, right? We got a front moving through.
A little might be an understatement.
Downright hot, maybe? A little hot, a little warmish?
Well, it's going to be cooler on Monday.
Oh, you're right. Okay, yes.
Parts of the Magnolia State are going to be below freezing if the weatherman is correct.
Really dropping on down there. But it's kind of that time of year, right? When we should expect that. But, you know, it's a teaser. It'll warm up again before
Inevitably.
It is all over with. So, a whole bunch of stuff going on. 40 airports have reduced flights due to the government shutdown. And that includes the world's busiest airport. That would be Hartsfield in Atlanta. Bunch of them all shut down, forced to decrease flights by 10%. Starting today, this decision announced by the Federal Aviation Administration yesterday. Personnel shortages, ongoing government shutdown, of course, causing that. Fatigued air traffic controllers who stay on to continue to work without pay. That's part of their job agreement with the government. You know, I'm not crazy about having a fatigued air traffic controller. Doesn't sound like that would be optimum for the flying public, but we do appreciate them coming on in. If the Democrats, dare I say it, get their heads out of their rear ends, right?
That's an impossibility for them. It's taking a permanent residence.
It seems like it. And pass this funding bill and open up the government, we wouldn't be dealing with this nonsense. But that is what is going on right now. The FAA and the Transportation Department are styling this, labeling it as an official emergency. They have issued an emergency order. And they listed these airports. I will say this, for what it's worth. This is different than weather delays and shutdowns and cancellations because those are a bit unpredictable. Nothing more frustrating, though you can't blame the airlines for it or anybody for that matter. It's the weather. So you show up, though, you're all ready to go. You don't know, and then it's announced there. Overhead, hey, we got a delay. Or you may see it on your app using all the various connectivity technology. This is different in that you know ahead of time. You absolutely know ahead of time. You're getting a little warning. So if you're flying check out the information about your flight to see whether or not your flight is affected. Looking at the map of those airports where there has been a reduction in travel as ordered by the Federal Aviation Administration, the closest one to us is Memphis. And then Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, the big ones you would expect. Tampa, Miami, looking to the south and east. Chicago, you would expect that. Along the East Coast, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Denver in the west, Phoenix, San Diego, Los Angeles, got 2 airports there. That's Orange County and LAX, of course, San Francisco, Seattle, and Portland. So, all are under restricted flight situation where all the planes ain't flying. So you got 40 of the busiest airports in the country are experiencing that today. Meanwhile, the Senate considers a revised plan to end the government shutdown, trying to resolve this impasse. The president wants the senators, of course, to end the filibuster rule, and that would, at that point, only require 51 votes to pass the legislation, as opposed to the 60 which are required to end cloture or to apply cloture, bring cloture into the chamber, which would allow, at that point, legislation to proceed. So, need 60 votes to do that, to achieve cloture. Well, bottom line is, the president's saying, hey, look, in that filibuster thing, let's get down to 50. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, he told Senate Republicans yesterday, expect to vote on a new proposal today that would, in fact, end the shutdown. However, Democrats are dug in. They are communicating. They're not sold on this new package. Some saying they would need their core demand of extending the enhanced subsidies of the Affordable Care Act to be part of any legislation they would support. So government workers gone without pay for a few weeks now. You got cuts in the SNAP program, food stamps, food aid, other assistance programs. Airlines are scrambling their flight plans all over the place. It's causing a big old mess. Now, I don't know how this gets the Democrats on board, but this new proposal, Rhino, is, hey, a continuing resolution except for 3 bills that would be part of the normal 12-bill order to fund government for a year. Because remember, continuing resolutions don't appropriate money other than just says, hey, look, just keep everything the same to some date. Pick a date. In this case, the continuing resolution's November 21st. What we'd like to see is that the Congress appropriate money and fund the discretionary function of government through what's known as regular order. There are 12 bills that fund the functional categories of discretionary spending. 3 of those have passed the House, been sent to the Senate. They cover the legislative branch. There has to be money appropriated for that. Agriculture, military construction, and Veterans Affairs are lumped into one piece of legislation. That's different than funding the military writ large through the National Defense Authorization Act. But nonetheless, the Republicans are saying, hey, look, how about this CR, which is short-term, temporary, but these 3 bills that I just listed for a year. Now, I don't know that that's going to get any of the Democrats on board, because they're still saying that their main demand is that the enhanced ACA subsidies set to expire at the end of the year have to figure in to any legislation they could get behind to open up the government. Man, Senator Richard Blumenthal, the Democrat from Connecticut, says the subsidies need to be included in any stopgap bill. Quote, settling for some kind of vague promise about a vote in the future on some indeterminate bill without any definite inclusion in the law, I think is a mistake. I guess what bothers me is that, wait, in 2010, you guys were praising this legislation. You were celebrating. You were lauding it, talking about the Affordable Care Act. And now you're saying, hey, not so fast. The subsidies, they're not enough. We got to add more. We got to increase them. I don't get it. Why was it okay 15 years ago, and all of a sudden today they woke up and said, nah, we got to keep it going. I'm telling you, it's like, Milton Friedman, the famous economist, said nothing is so permanent as a temporary government program. We're witnessing that.
And remember, Blumenthal lied about his service in Vietnam.
He's a prolific liar and gets away with it and is serving in the U.S. Senate. I find that to be abhorrent. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We've got Caleb Saylors from the news department at 11:20. Scott Burns, co-founder, 7 Days for the Troops at 12:05. We are in the Element Wealth studio.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. Okay, so you saw the big announcement. Journey, the Final Frontiers tour. We discussed that a bit yesterday. As that broke, they're going to be performing in Tupelo at Cadence Bank Arena up there. Looking forward to that.
For the pre-antepenultimate show of the tour.
That's right. Yeah, you taught us something on that yesterday. You sure did. So, okay. I got my tickets, right?
Right.
From StubHub. But I'm disappointed. And I'll tell you why. I only got row 3. Really want row 1. I'm looking for them. You know what happens, how that works, right? Somebody's squatting on them. And inevitably, this is how I usually end up in row 1. Then they put them out there for like $8 million. Oh, my gosh. But I got row 3 in hand. Well, they hadn't sent them yet. You know how that works. But they're pretty reliable. From StubHub, I think, is where I found the best after looking at Ticketmaster. And what's the other one? SeatGeek. There's a couple others I can't remember that aren't as popular. But looking forward to it. Looks like it's going to be configured real well. Pretty typical for those kinds of events. So on the floor there, row 3. Looking forward to the boys being in Tupelo. That's June 27th. Making their way to the Magnolia State. Now, Neil Schon, by the way, the lead guitarist, co-founder, only one in the band that is a founder, remaining, playing, says, I'm not done with music. And, you always got to wonder, Rhino, is this a marketing ploy? This is like the final, what'd you call it? What, no? The number?
It's the final farewell tour and evening with Journey.
No, the word you used to describe it a minute ago.
Pre-antepenultimate.
Yeah. So you wonder, though, if it's a marketing ploy that about this time next year, yeah, look, the final coming up, right? So, but should be cool. Should be fun. Looking forward to that, no doubt, coming up next year. So, the tariffs on the Supreme Court's docket, and it looks like they're leaning towards striking down the president's actions regarding tariffs. Now, it could be nuanced in that some tariffs are allowed to remain, some are struck down, but that is what we're waiting for from the Supreme Court. The president says it would be devastating for our economy if the Supreme Court rules against his ability to impose tariffs. The markets, in the meantime, don't think this is related to tariffs. This is just a good old-fashioned sell-off to normalize valuations and stock prices. Selling off yet again today. The NASDAQ down a whopping 395. It's been a bad month for the NASDAQ. Worst month since April. There was a huge sell-off. You remember that. So not a good situation with respect certainly to big tech today, right now. Bitcoin still sitting around the $100,000 mark, but this is actually not month, but the worst week since April for the NASDAQ, because it pretty sure that every day was in the red. Maybe one winning day on the NASDAQ during this particular week. But investors are concerned about getting a little too frothy on the technology issues where the price-to-earning ratios have been just astronomical and too high, I think, for the comfort level of those on Wall Street. And so the stocks are pulling back. The Dow also down as well. Now the NASDAQ down 405 points. Big old sell-off going on. The Dow also down. That's how your money's looking today. Crude oil, $59, still sitting around that $60 a barrel range. And the volatility index above 20. Anytime you see that, you know that the markets are all over the place. The Dow down 314. Something, however, that is related we should be paying attention to is consumer sentiment falling towards record low levels. Consumer sentiment declining in November with the University of Michigan. This is the organization that tracks consumer sentiment, has been relied on for decades, honestly. They say the moods have dropped further this month. That, according to their monthly survey just conducted. So a continued slide. And this is just because I think most people are experiencing or observing that prices aren't coming down. In fact, they continue to go up. Not at the pace they were in 21 when Bidenflation was unleashed with the Inflation Reduction Act, but really the big one was the American Rescue Plan that was just dousing a smoldering fire with very powerful fuel. And it went ablaze, did the inflation monster. So the government shutdown's dragging on for over a month. Consumers are expressing worries about negative consequences of that for the economy and just, again, not really seeing prices moderate the way they'd like to. Amazingly to me is that the Democrats are totally leaning into the cost of living narrative and seem to be abandoning all the other crazy woke crap for the most part. Or let's say that at least they're putting it down the list. They're de-emphasizing it, the words I was looking for. So now they think they got some new swagger in these wins. Not so fast, Democrats. You still got some huge problems, and you still have some crazy stuff going on that people are paying attention to. But in general, it does seem that they're spending more of their effort, of their promotion, of their messaging focused on the cost of living. And that, I think, was successful for them in New York, although it's always crazy. The only solutions Democrats ever offer is, well, let me go take some more money out of this group and then filter some off the top, and then I'll give you some of it. That's their solution. So in the case of Mondami in New York, I mean, I don't know why he thinks that his proposals are going to bring down costs for everyday Americans. What? Free bus rides? I don't see how that moves the needle. Increasing the minimum wage? Folks, that does not address that problem. Not the way they think it does. And then...
you know what free bus rides turns into?
What's that?
A free mobile home for the homeless.
That's exactly what happens. That's a good point. Because they don't have any money, but they can get on the bus in this case. Of course, as we've already pointed out, you can't do that. You can't do that from the mayor's office. That is something that must be implemented in Albany at the state capitol. But just looking at his proposals, socialized grocery stores, government-owned grocery stores, which have failed in their their experiment in the past, that does not really affect the cost of living. The best thing they can do to affect the cost of living is get the hell out of the way. Freezing rent, price controls, never, ever do they work. For 2 million rent-stabilized residents is what he's saying. Those don't work. So, again, this notion that government intrusion and intervention into the economy...
Well, in fairness, rent stabilization works for those that currently hold an apartment. It doesn't help anybody trying to find an affordable apartment.
Yeah.
Especially those that may need a little help because... Nobody's moving.
Incredible.
Nobody's leaving a rent-controlled apartment.
No, that's right. Which is what we need. We need churn. We need turnover. Yeah. So, totally agree. All right, I'm going to step aside for a break. I'm about to hop on something else I got to do. We're going to have a best of coming up for you in the next segment only. But I'll be back after that. Stay with us. We're in the Element Wealth studio.
From the it's so awesome! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We kind of covered I would think, kind of a nothing burger, honestly, with the Democrats winning races they should have won in the state Senate after redistricting occurred. But we got a bigger thing going on at the national level, as you well know, a case that has made its way to the Supreme Court dealing with congressional district drawing lines, boundaries. Louisiana, I think, kind of the main plaintiff in that case at the Supreme Court. They seem to be leaning towards maybe striking down that practice as being what the Voting Rights Act was all about. That's where all that stems from. And you've got California redistricting, Texas redistricting. What a mess. But I'm wondering, Senator, if the Supreme Court says, hey, look, you can't order the states to go draw lines solely on the basis of race because you think that particular district ought to have someone of a particular race to effectively and fairly represent the constituents. If they strike that down, should you guys be drawing new lines for District 1 here, or 2, pardon me, in the United States congressional seats in Mississippi? That would be Benny Thompson's.
Throw me a question I didn't expect there, so thank you. No.
It's just something I've been thinking about.
No, it's good.
We ought to have legislation teed up, ready to go.
Well, so let me say this.
Okay.
So first, I'm no expert legally on redistricting law and all that.
Okay.
I was on the redistricting committee, and I can tell you from that experience, but in being a lawyer, there is all kinds of laws, not just race, that are involved in that. And so my point is that in Mississippi, the way it's done, it's not just race. There's a whole bunch of other things.
Okay.
On the race issue, to your point, the Supreme Court over time has said that race alone cannot be a standard. They did that in I think it's the University of Michigan law school applications. They have set that precedent, which I totally agree with. It should not be the sole factor on that. And so if you're looking at the tea leaves, you can expect that if that's the issue, and I don't know all the briefed issues on that's probably where that's going to go. Now, let me say this, that I actually think the Supreme Court's trying to figure all this out because a couple years ago there was a Alabama case, and they actually upheld, or no, they said Alabama had to redistrict. There was also another case in the South where they said they had to redistrict. They did it with us. So now they're going to say, and now the prognosticators are saying, well, now they're going to strike down that. So it gets very specific and very technical.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, what I think where things will kind of lay out is it can't be the sole issue for making determination. And mind you, if you look back in the 70s and all, when all of this 60s and 70s, when all this kind of started, the Supreme Court in those decisions said you can do it because to correct wrongs from the past, and I'm paraphrasing. Okay. That's what they said. Okay, and that's why in the University of Michigan case for the law school, they said race cannot be the sole factor to do this, but it can be a factor in when you admit people.
I got you.
It's where they put it on the pyramid, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that's why I guess lawyers get paid money to make these arguments.
I mean, Harvard, right?
And Harvard's the same way.
Yeah.
Right.
When struck down the so-called affirmative action in admissions.
Right. Exactly. Because race was used as a reason. I'm sorry. It got put in that position to, quote, correct the past.
Yeah.
And actually, in the Michigan case, if I'm not mistaken, Chief Justice Roberts said it may, or one of the justices said it may have been good then, and nobody can deny progress has been made for in the last 40 years, whatever, 50 years. And so, is it time that is no longer the case? And I think the Supreme Court has been saying yes, but it gets complicated. But you know what? Our democracy changes all the time.
Okay.
And so that's what I know about those things.
Let's pivot a bit. Are you thinking about introducing legislation dealing with the teaching of civics in our schools?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So the short answer is yes, because, Gerard, it is unbelievable to kind of this point that how our generations don't understand civics. I don't know if it just didn't get taught, if it wasn't described, people weren't listening. I know it's not being taught. And when I say civics, I'm talking about federalism with a small f, federal versus local versus state versus local, checks and balances,
sure,
the separation of powers, everything that's built into the Constitution. And we had, when the bill came up in committee in the Senate Education Committee last year, we had this discussion. And it was interesting because people said, like, look, the things that you see out in the media and somebody saying this happened, well, but Congress can't do it. Well, yes, they can, because they've been given the power. For example, and I'm not weighing in on one side or the other, but the tariffs that are going before the Supreme Court, and I was driving up here this morning, and it said the justices are looking askance on the president's use of the tariffs. And in the comments, it was because that act, the use of tariffs are given to Congress for the purpose of raising money, not to the executive branch. That's called separation of powers. And we have to abide by that. We have to do that. That is what our democracy, our republic, is built on. And so, and look, the funnier part is people mean well, but look, we go home and say, hey, Bryce, how's Washington doing? And we're in Jackson, I'm a state senator. People mean well, sure. but we need to understand that, and we've lost that. I agree. And so it passed overwhelmingly in the Senate. The House, I hear, is I hope the House is going to take it up this year. There's a lot of people, and since the session, I've talked about it. It's generated a lot of support. I think we have a lot of outside support for that. I've had people come up and said, man, Senator Wiggins, that's a good bill. We need, because people, look, to be honest, I think the social media effect has created a lot of problems, because there's no barriers to social media, and people are weighing in, and it's just wrong when it comes to the Constitution. But also, I think that people want a black and white answer, and if you understand the Constitution, and I'm talking about the Mississippi and our U.S. Constitution, there's very limited black and white answers in there, and people think it's in there, and it's not. And our democracy is based on the three branches interworking together.
I wonder if we shouldn't require students to pass a basic civics test.
This is what this is going to do.
Okay.
This is and the way the bill was structured last year was in your middle and high schools to have a year's worth of civics instruction, and you have to pass it, and you have to pass that course. They've done it in Utah. They've done it in a couple other states as well.
Okay.
So, yes, we are saying you have to pass it. And, by the way, not just your 8th grade, but not just 8th grade, and you say this is where, the state capitol is located. This is how the branches interact, separation of powers, checks and balances, so that we end up with a generation that are engaged citizens. And
I think you're right. Little on the lawmaking process, perhaps.
Yeah, because and look, I understand. This stuff can get dry and all that.
Yeah.
But when I go and speak, I like to talk about the lawmaking process, the making of the sausage, if you will.
Yeah.
People want to know. They have a right to know, and but they don't, because it was never taught. Yeah. I mean, when I was, you're going back over time. When I grew up, it was the I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill, the schoolhouse rock. You remember that?
Oh, very well.
And we don't have those anymore. I actually got it out and showed my kids. They thought that was a little goofy, but it was great, because everybody in my generation knew I'm a bill on Capitol Hill.
Yeah. All right. We got a final segment. If you want to stick around, we can continue the discussion, because I want to get you to react to the speaker's priority, which is school choice, see where you float on that one. And then also these rules around our state being part of the American Counselors Association, something I brought up in the last session. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, if you have any thoughts about that.
Sure.
We'll come back. We got a break right here. Final segment of Middays on this Wednesday is coming.
Hey, this is...
We interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge. Huge news. Huge news. Huge.
You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. That's Be Good to Yourself by Journey from the Raised on Radio album, 1986. That's back when the mullet was in style. You know, everybody had the mullets running around. Appreciate that. Great music there. So, something that always aggravates the people of America, I think it's fair to say, are the way in which they believe members of Congress abuse their offices for the perks and the spoils and the trappings. And in fact, I've always believed that that's the hook, more so than it is so-called power. I know a lot of people think they're just drunk on power, and maybe so. I'm not saying that's not an issue. But I really do believe that it's some of these special sorts of benefits one can receive as a member of Congress that the rest of us can't. Well, there's a report recently about this very issue. Shocking. Private planes, a lot of them, and lots of reports on specific members. And by the way, you shouldn't be surprised. This isn't unique to a particular party. This is pervasive. So there's the private jets is a big thing that's going on, and lots of other. And this all comes out of their representational allowance is what it's called. And they have a fair amount of latitude on how that money can be spent.
Who'd have thought it? The people that set the rules for how they get to spend your money are okay with the rules being lax for spending your money.
Yeah, I know. You're shocked at that. But some of the private plane stuff probably is the most egregious. And there are just lots of examples of that have been exposed. Lodging, lots of specialized lodging. And then I would say again, Rhino, that's one of the things where if a hotel is booked, solid, sold out, you and I called and said, hey, can't you find something? We got no chance, right? But if you're elected member of a body such as Congress, just seems like they can always find a room. It's that sort of stuff. And I don't want to generalize and say that everybody in Congress abuses their position. I really don't want to do that because I know there's some who don't. But some of these reports on this airfare stuff is a bit jarring. Representative Dusty Johnson, a Republican from South Dakota, was the top spender with nearly $63,000 paid for charter flights since 2019. Sam Graves, Missouri, a Republican, $18,295 in the same period for 5 flights. Actually, that's pretty cheap. They must be partnering up with some others because it costs more than that. 5 flights from Executive Aircraft Leasing. So I should point out, though, that just a kind of a random charter scheduled is less than if you have a jet membership. And the difference is on the charter, you're sort of you're subject to availability and some other possible constraints. Whereas if you have a membership, that's what you're paying for. I mean, there are some limits, but they're pretty thin. So David Williams, president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, says there needs to be better controls on travel to avoid abuses. Now, I will say, I've been on flights out of Jackson here where I've seen members of our delegation sitting in coach class, economy class, not sitting in first class. Bottom line is, and I think Representative Michael Guest, who represents this district here, I believe he always travels commercial on that basis. But some of them see fit to go crazy. All House offices which submitted reimbursements for charters or private jet flights since 2019 totaled nearly $135,000. That's after analyzing about 3 million lines of House spending data, and that included $20,000 charged to Security Aviation by the House Committee on Natural Resources. So, full disclosure, I personally have a jet membership with Nicholas Air, a fine Mississippi company, and you can't get the kind of pricing that this is. But I use it extremely sparingly, and I never fly on it by myself. Only when I've got family and friends where I feel like it's worth it. But nonetheless, just wanted to point that out. I think that's one of the things folks pay attention to. Fox News SuperTalk News is next. In the next hour, it's Caleb Sailors from the news department.
Your hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
All right, so the president says he needs a Game 2 plan. Game 2 plan, that's his words, if tariffs are struck down. I'm not sure what the president is considering in that respect, but I think that perhaps he and his inner circle are feeling like the Supreme Court is not going to be friendly to him on this particular matter. On the other hand, though, I saw, Rhino, I think I got this right, where they did rule that the president's order requiring that only 2 biological genders be used on passports, right? I think I saw that. Can stand. Because the prior administration says, no, just pick from any list of about 8,000 different genders, right? Whatever you want, knock yourself out. I thought the purpose of a passport, to some extent, is for security. You could argue, right? At least identification level security. Well, how can you do that? Isn't it kind of fundamental to know, is this a man or a woman? Because there are only 2 biological genders. And
it is still a part of spycraft to alter one's appearance for infiltration.
Okay. Didn't think about that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. That's a security risk. Oh, man. And some of this crazy stuff continues. You sent me something that was just incredible. Is that something we can play for the folks here?
I think so. I don't think it curses. This is a conversation on privilege, and it's wild.
Question. Can you tell me what category of fat I fit in?
So it's based on your shirt size. So if you are a 1 or 2X, you are small fat. 3 to 4X, you are mid fat. 5 to 6X, you are super fat, is based on what level of privilege you have in the world. So someone in a small fat category may not struggle getting on an airplane, but someone in a mid fat or super fat may not be able to use even the airplane extender. So that's where that comes in, and like the privilege levels of like what fat means to different people.
Super fat. That's an official category, right? Super fat.
Check your fat privilege.
Oh, my gosh. Did you notice that she had the obligatory high-rising terminal? In case you didn't know, that's what it's called, folks, when you elevate the tone there at the end of every statement. That's called a high-rising terminal. Oh, my gosh. You know that before you even clicked the button to play it, you knew that's what you could expect. Oh, man. Meanwhile, she's a teacher in the Danville Public Schools in Virginia who happens to be a
student address
teaching kids in a school, made a post online threatening to shoot people if they don't put made-up pronouns in their email. This is a teacher. Literally, I'm looking at it right now. I need to send this to you.
I don't want to see it.
You probably don't. There's a graphic. White background. I'm going to describe it for you. White background, silhouette, side view of, I should say, a side silhouette of a human head down through the shoulders, just cut off at the top there, leaning over.
They call it a profile?
Yes, but to the side, but just all black silhouette, yeah. Right? Not a picture of an actual person or anything. Just imagine an all black silhouette from the side, okay? And at the top, the words, put the pronouns back in the email. Behind the head of this person is an outstretched arm you can see from, about the elbow on down, forearm, half of the forearm on down, a hand holding a gun pointed to the back of the head of the silhouette of the profile. And, of course, the arm, Rhino, and the gun colored in with the rainbow flag colors. So this is essentially an LGBTQ militant, which, let's be honest, they are militant. You don't agree with me? Off with your head. I mean, that's where we are in this country.
It's ma'am.
That's right. So this is a teacher. This is a teacher promoting, sharing this graphic that I just described. Literally saying, put the pronouns back in the email or I'm going to shoot you, execution style. That's where we are. It's incredible. Just absolutely incredible. George Washington, sadly, high school. Sad that the school of the founder of our country, bears his name, has a teacher in it with these sorts of viewpoints and promoting this garbage, but more importantly, teaching our children. What are the odds that she at least attempts to indoctrinate these impressionable students with her twisted viewpoints? What are the odds of that?
His twisted viewpoints.
That's right. Excuse me. Pardon me. Oh, that's exactly right. And this is what's sad to me, is that they sort of have the floor. They have a captive audience, unsuspecting children seeking to learn knowledge, safety, comfort. That's what you do when you're a kid. And you get that ostensibly when you're in the presence of adults, except when it's this kind of adult. That's just sick. It's ridiculously sick. Well, between that and the fat categories, whatever that person was, I couldn't tell what the gender was, honestly.
It was very androgynous.
Exactly. Little did Saturday Night...
Based on the dialogue, I would presume female.
I would too. Little did Saturday Night Live know, the creators, the writers there, that their little Pat skit was going to literally come to fruition. It was funny.
That's the ultimate irony of modern politics, is you look back 10, 15, 20 years, and what was considered beyond the pale and so ridiculous that it was funny because it was a parody of reality is now reality.
That's sad. But that was a parody, and it was funny. We didn't think anything of it.
I got to find the clip from, I forget the name of the movie. It was Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis. So it was not a serious movie. But it came out in like 2014 or something. And it was them running campaigns against each other. They were both trying to get elected. And Will Ferrell, there's a montage of clips of him in different locations, and it starts off pretty boilerplate and normal, like he's at the veterans meeting, and he's like, veterans and military service members are the backbone of society. And the next clip is like teachers, and it's teachers and education is the backbone of society. And he just keeps going down until finally he gets to like Filipino tilt-a-whirl workers are the backbone of society. And it sounded just like it's the campaign. Thank you. On the C Spire text line from 601 called the campaign.
Campaign.
It sounded just like Mom Donnie during his acceptance speech.
That is so awesome. That is fantastic. Well, crazy stuff still happening. Sad to say. It's still alive and well, as the saying goes. I caught a story, University of Iowa. I mean, of course, you know the university environment is ground zero, the epicenter of all this nonsense. Arrested after caught on video toppling a Turning Point USA hot chocolate table. I can't help but think of your famous, behold, the tolerant left, right? That just was a perfect description and framing of the left in this country. That, yeah, you don't have the right to just set up a table here and give out hot chocolate to people who are cold on campus. Justin Pham Calhoun, 19 years old, arrested and charged with disorderly conduct, criminal mischief, and harassment. Good, that according to the Iowa Pulse. Law enforcement, according to a university spokesperson, law enforcement has identified and arrested the individual responsible.
Yeah, but we've also observed that in Democrat-run strongholds, arrests really don't mean anything.
That's true.
It's an inconvenience at most.
That's true. So Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips said he believes this person, Calhoun, same student who flipped over another conservative group's table on campus earlier this month. So what do? Just run around campus flipping over conservative tables? Caleb Saylor's now.
Hey, this is Bob, and if
Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get your motor running. Head out on the highway. Looking for adventure. And whatever comes our way. Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We are, of course, in the Element Wealth studio. We thank you so much for joining us today. We are pleased to welcome, as we do on Fridays, it's Caleb Saylors. He is, of course, a multimedia journalist with SuperTalk Mississippi News. All right, Caleb, give us an update. This Yazoo City explosion, I was really worried about that when I saw that come across the wire, but give us the latest.
Yeah, thankfully no injuries have been reported, no deaths especially have been reported, which is obviously always the good sign because we've seen explosions at artillery plants and other plants in other parts of the southeastern region of our country, and it's been very devastating, very tragic. Now, this is not good per se, but thankfully everybody's okay. So, yeah, at the CF Industries plant on Highway 49 North in Yazoo City, there was a chemical leak and explosion at the CF Industries. It's an ammonia plant. Again, ammonia can be very dangerous if if it kabooms. But people in the area were ordered to, some were ordered to shelter in place, some were ordered to evacuate depending on where they are. Those orders have since been lifted. There's no shelter in place order anymore. The Red Cross was even stationed at Yazoo County High School offering immediate assistance to people that had been affected by the explosion. But so far, officials from the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, Mississippi Emergency Management Agency, and the Department of Public Safety have been on scene kind of assessing the incident, how it happened, and also checking the air quality, too, to make sure that it's safe to even be in the vicinity of the plant. But according to Governor Tate Reeves, there is no shelter-in-place order anymore, and everybody seems to have been okay.
Yeah, because when first I saw the report and that they had evacuated the area, of course, out of an abundance of caution, makes sense.
Right.
really worried about that.
Absolutely.
That's some powerful stuff. Ammonia, I think, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, which is deadly.
Oh, very deadly,
Yeah.
right. I mean, it's something so common. We use it in all of our household cleaning supplies, but absolutely it's very deadly if in the wrong setting.
Yeah. So everything's good, though. And back to normal work now? Did they reopen the plant?
Well,
do we know?
I'm not sure if they've reopened the plant now. I haven't heard any word there, but I do know that officials are investigating that scene.
Okay. So we're still kind of waiting to get further information. I'm sure there will be a total post-mortem style investigation.
And the Department of Environmental Quality, obviously, you know, the director, Chris Wells there and everybody, they're very thorough.
Yeah.
They don't do anything without crossing every T and dotting every I. And so I know people that used to work at the DEQ, and they loved working there. Everything they do is thorough. So we'll get a full, pretty much comprehensive report from that scene as soon as it's done.
All right, elections across Mississippi this past Tuesday, and, of course, all the results are in and final. What do we got there?
Right, and, of course, you can go to supertalk.fm for a full rundown. And
Great coverage. Great coverage you guys did.
Well, thank you, Gerard. We appreciate it. We were working hard, giving you up-to-the-minute, up-to-the-update information on everything coming in on Tuesday night. And, of course, not easy with 17 elections, but we got it done, and it was good to keep everybody informed. But, 17 special legislative elections statewide. Some of those were from a court order that said that Mississippi had diluted black voting power. So some of these districts, especially in DeSoto County and Hattiesburg, were redrawn. And we saw a few of these seats get flipped. Senate District 2, that was formerly held by Senator David Parker, who stepped down, and I guess he's going back to his practice as an optometrist. That one, a Democrat named Teresa Isom defeated South Haven Alderman Charlie Hoots to flip that seat blue. So now a Democrat will run David Parker's former seat. And then in House District 22, which is over close to the Golden Triangle area, northeast Mississippi, Justin Crosby, a Democrat who ran a pretty good campaign up there, defeated incumbent John Lancaster. And then Johnny Dupree, the former Hattiesburg mayor in Senate District 45, he got the victory over Anna Rush, a Republican. And so those were kind of the big three that the Democratic Party highlighted as, you know, kind of taking away the two Senate seats, mainly arguably take away the Senate supermajority that the Republicans have had. And the Democrat Party is celebrating this as a major success. Even the National Democratic Party had a Zoom call on Wednesday and lauded efforts in Mississippi. I mean, we know the Democratic Party put a lot of money into Mississippi elections, even the local ones, to flip some of these seats blue. And we see it kind of bore fruit in this most recent election, and even the local Mississippi Democratic Party, Executive Director Sheck Taylor and company, have now said they feel like Mississippi is a battleground state. Now, the Mississippi Republican Party pushed back. Of course, Chairman Mike Hurst, who's been on the program many times, he said, you know, these results were disheartening. We didn't want this to happen, but they were expected. When you redraw lines to create majority-minority districts and in certain areas, you can kind of expect this to happen. And he said that this won't stop the conservative agenda in Mississippi. This won't prevent Mississippi. He said this won't turn Mississippi blue all of a sudden, that the Republican Party is still thriving in the state and that the agenda will still pass.
Little out over their skis, as the saying goes on this one.
But, you know, if I were to speak to both parties, I would tell one not to get overzealous and tell the other one not to be entirely dismissive, too.
Totally agree. I mean, you always got to be scared, right?
I mean, I believe it may have been State Senator Jeremy England or one of them on the Republican side. It could have been Bryce Wiggins, who was just sitting in this chair earlier, or who was just on the show earlier. One of them also said, too, that the Republican Party needs to, you know, address they say the Republican Party has a demographics issue and needs to address, you know, younger people, a more diverse voting pool, and try to sway them to the Republican side. If not, the state will flip blue. I even know Insurance Commissioner Mike Chaney has even signaled the warning call there, like, hey, if we don't do something here, this state will be flipped blue.
Sure. I mean, and you need to be constantly concerned about that and listening to the people and adjusting your agenda accordingly. And doing what they want you to do. And if they don't, well, then they'll get somebody else in there to do it. That's generally how it works, the way it should work in our country.
I think that's even biblically. There's a scripture that says, like, may his days in office be short, may another come take his place. But that's where we are with these elections. Okay. And you can, again, like I said earlier, you can find the full election rundown at supertalk.fm.
Absolutely. In fact, I used the report, which was kind of a living article, if you will, and that you started with the initial results and then continue to update it, and then the final in bold. I thought it was really well done, and used it on the show yesterday.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. We like that format because, again, it gives everybody, they know, like, okay, at 7:45, here's where we are. Oh, no, at 8 o'clock, this other candidate surged and took a big lead. So that way you can see what's happening in real time.
Yep.
And we like doing it that way, too, of course, to keep everybody as informed as possible.
All right, so football weekend, what's up there?
Gerard, our first, it was funny. I was kind of wearing two hats on Tuesday night, helping JT Mitchell, my news director, and Jill Sanchez, one of our other MMJs, with election coverage. But I also had to put the football hat on for a minute, too, because the first college football playoff poll came out of the 2025-26 season came out on Tuesday. And Ole Miss came in at number 6. The Rebels are hot, red hot, with just one loss, a loss at Georgia, but otherwise playing really good football and they keep winning and winning and winning. This is the highest ranking in the college football playoff poll that Ole Miss has had since 2014 when the first poll came out. Remember that first poll came out, Gerard, Mississippi State was number 1 and Ole Miss was number 4. Cool to have two Mississippi teams in the top 4 there. Neither one of them made the playoff that year. I think Ole Miss upended Mississippi State's pursuit to get there in the Egg Bowl that year. But the Rebels are number 6 and have a matchup against the Citadel tomorrow. Ole Miss should handle business there. But then got Florida the weekend after and Mississippi State after that. Look, Ole Miss just needs to handle business and win. If Ole Miss wins out, and potentially goes 10, and maybe even goes 10-2. Ole Miss should be in the college football playoff. But the message that Lane Kiffin's sending to his team right now is just win. Go 1-0 each week.
Yeah.
That's how we'll get where we want.
Always the issue when you look ahead.
Mississippi State got a big win over the weekend. Finally got the monkey off of their back. They just couldn't win an SEC game in the Jeff Lebby era. They were close. Took two big teams to overtime this year, with Tennessee and Texas being those two, and just fell short. They got a big win Saturday, just getting it out of the way. They were trailing Arkansas by 14 and came back and won that game.
They did.
And Blake Shapen kind of took over in heroic fashion when it led a game-winning drive or a go-ahead drive to take the lead, and Arkansas obviously didn't come back and counter, either sending it to overtime or winning. So State has a big game, huge game tomorrow. Top 5 Georgia and Starkville. Barstool Sports is going to be there. SEC Nation's going to be there. Like that is going to be a big opportunity for the maroon and white to say, hey, no. We're not just coming close in these games. We're winning these games.
And that is at 11 o'clock,
11 o'clock.
Ole Miss time,
yep.
12 o'clock.
Yes, and then Southern Miss is bowl eligible for the first time in 3 years.
They're doing real well, too.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, SMTT as it goes.
Yeah,
right?
to the top.
To the top, TTT. So, all right, the Caleb Sailors, he's with Super Talk Mississippi News, a multimedia journalist. We're stepping aside for a break right now. Scott Burns, co-founder of 7 Days for the Troops, joins Middays at 12:05.
From the Seabrook Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Well, the Democrat National Committee, the chairman, Ken Martin, says the Democratic Party is a party of affordability. Our candidates connected with voters at their core by running on what they truly care about, their families, their livelihoods, and the American dream. Exactly what is their plan to promote each of those various policies and those issues? I mean, is it government-owned grocery stores? Seems like it. Something they universally agree on, of course, raising taxes on the wealthy, make them pay for everything. Pretty much their deal. Your old buddy Robert Wright, she's at it again, claiming that the reason Social Security is headed for insolvency, that defined as not being able to satisfy its obligations 100%. That's just around the corner, hard to believe, 2032, 2033. And Reich says that's because of inequality, that the wealthy don't pay their fair share in Social Security taxes, which is horse hockey because they also have a limit on the benefits they can receive. So what they want to do is force them to pay a whole lot more in but not receive any more out. In other words, they want a certain small number segment of people to pay for a large number's retirement benefits. That's just classic redistribution. In other words, it really does transition the Social Security program into more of a welfare program when somebody else is absorbing the financial burden of a person's retirement benefits. How can you look at that and hold it as anything other than welfare? You didn't pay in sufficiently to cover your own benefits, so you want somebody else to pick up the tab. And that's what they're vying for, are the Democrats. There's some Republicans, sadly, that support this concept, this proposal as well. Just get rid of the cap, let everybody pay in on all of their income, which is, I think, would be a bad idea and not the way to handle it, to shore it up. But it's not even sufficient. It would help for a while, but it doesn't permanently stabilize the program. But that's what they want. So the Democrats say they're ready to end the shutdown, as we said earlier, but they will not even think about coming to the table until there are some, quote, tangible results on the Obamacare subsidies. And I'm still just perplexed as to why all of a sudden they're married to these enhanced subsidies, that the original subsidies, the structure included in the original law in 2010, are not sufficient. Why is that? Why do they see it that way? They just, and like I said, I guess it's because you have a temporary government welfare program that's never temporary, as Milton Friedman said. They want it to be permanent. They believe this is benefiting them from a political perspective. Now, the president says the shutdown was a big factor. He says this was negative for the Republicans, and this is, of course, I think, fueling his efforts to persuade the members of the Senate, the Republican members of the Senate, to end the filibuster on a narrow basis for purposes of passing the continuing resolution to open the government up. And that they don't appear to be inclined to do so. There are no jobs report today. That's because the government agency that produces that data is shut down. So we don't know what happened in October. Longest shutdown in U.S. history underway at this moment of time. There are some private data sources that are available, but the Labor Department's monthly jobs report is a massive ordeal, and it didn't come out for the month of October because it would be out by now because of the shutdown. So there's lots of speculation about jobs and the health of the labor market in this country. And there are, again, some private organizations that conduct their own surveys. But that's where we are on that. We don't have the final data. Here at home, interesting irony. The Kosciuszko, Mississippi Board of Aldermen adopted an anti-school choice resolution a couple of days ago, which is, of course, at odds with their representative. That happens to be Speaker of the House, Jason White. As you are aware, the Speaker is a strong supporter of education freedom in Mississippi and has indicated that will be his top priority as we approach the 2026 legislative session. Kosciuszko, just a short 70 miles away from our position here in Jackson, largest city in the Speaker's district, which encompasses parts of Atala, Carroll, Holmes, and Leake counties. It's also where his law office is located. If I'm not mistaken, Rhino, I think he was one time the attorney for the city. It's been a while. So Kosciuszko has joined with some other cities that have denounced school choice. I know of some school boards which have as well. This is disappointing, really disappointing. The resolution calls the local public school system, which is there in Kosciuszko, which has been an A for the last 3 years straight. Department of Education has awarded that A grade to the Kosciuszko public schools. This resolution refers to the public schools there in the area as, quote, the lifeblood, end quote, of the community. Urges its delegation that represents Kosciuszko to oppose school choice policies. The statement also defines education savings accounts and vouchers, tax credit programs, all typically part of a robust school choice system. And this, I just don't get this, Rhino, this obsession, this objection that has become obsessive to allowing a parent, a caretaker, to direct the funds allocated, appropriated by the state to the school setting of their choice, including a private school. There's like this serious aversion to, we can't let public money go to private entities. That's just kind of silly to me. The federal government...
Except when paving roads or sending service members to college or any other number of ways that public money is spent with private entities.
On and on and on. Health, good grief. The folks that run the Medicaid program in our state, we send them essentially a payment for everyone, all 740,000 people enrolled in it. Here's how much you get per person. That's a private organization. Heck, my industry, the information technology industry, the state relies, public sector relies heavily. Can you imagine if we said, hey, no public money going to external information technology companies? What would that look like? You'd be responsible for developing your own software. Well, wait a second. You got to buy software development tools from private companies. What are we going to write compilers now and application development software? Don't they use computers that we buy from private companies? I mean, I'm just thinking of that category. What about all the furniture and fixtures and all the building materials? This is crazy. and all those who build the buildings. We could just go on and on and on and on. I don't get it. How do they rationalize and reconcile between them?
Oh, there's no rationale there. They're not actually thinking. They're just regurgitating their spoon-fed talking points.
Well, that's sad. So the Kosciuszko Mayor Tim Kyle noted that open enrollment policies that loosen regulations around public school transfers would also divert funds from the local school district. Of course, it's always about the money. But I would say this to our friends here in Kosciuszko, the folks that run the city there, the mayor and the alderman. Your school is an A. What are you worried about? Why would anybody leave your fantastic schools? Coming right back.
Polyumpa, Mississippi. Covering the stories that matter most to Mississippians. Gerard Gibert. Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. So I took a break in the last hour to do a quick segment on Newsmax, and Rhino spun up our interview with some of our interview with Senator Bryce Wiggins from Jackson County yesterday. And I did in the second segment really question him on school choice. Honestly, Rhino, he had a lot.
That was in the last segment.
It was. It was
school choice, yeah.
Okay, but it may have been. There was another. Oh, it was the counselors. Is the other school-related issue that I asked him about? That he seemed like he may be in favor of changing. That we presently require at the state level, MDE, all districts adhere to the American School Counselors Association. And I have to give kudos to Casey, one of our listeners in Ocean Springs who serves on the school board down there, who has pointed out to us, going back to last session, we really need to cut ties with the American School Counselors Association. They've leaned full into the whole woke agenda, the whole DEI narrative. And after you and I went and researched their site and some of their materials and their content, yeah, it looked like something that I don't feel like our school should be compelled, key word there, compelled, mandated at the state level to participate in. At a minimum, let's just let the districts decide, right? People elect the school boards would make those calls. Not something that the DOE hands down, says you will do this. You will maintain adherence to the standards promulgated by school counselors. But back to the school choice issue, and we're going to keep working on that, by the way, in the next session to see if we can get some legislation passed that would, in fact, change that and would prohibit the Department of Education from mandating compliance with the American School Counselors Association. It's similar to the American Medical Association, the American Bar Association. These guys think they're social justice warriors than they are really doing things that would be of value to, say, counselors and doctors and lawyers. They're just big social justice organizations that take a bunch of money and feed and pay a bunch of people that honestly don't produce a whole lot of value at the end of the day. They may get mad at that. I don't care. Too much of that in our country, in my view. There's just churning files and writing stuff and getting paid heavily for it and telling you what to do is part of it. School choice. The senator said something yesterday about, the concern I have. I'm paraphrasing a bit. You may have to help me out, but he does encounter some situations, family situations in his line of work as a lawyer and in other just scenarios. And he was kind of seemed to me to be making a point that we have some parents out there that aren't really capable of being good parents, and therefore they're not.
I think he was using a youth court as the example, where the children he encounters in youth court are there because of
poor parenting, right?
Bad parents,
yeah. Well, but he was trying to make the point, therefore, they're not really wise enough to make decisions about their kids' education. You got to be restricted to your public school. That's the point I believe he was making. I disagree totally.
I would imagine the parents who have children in youth court and the parents who want to send their kids to a better school, to take a page out of Kamala Harris's book, I don't think that Venn diagram overlaps a whole heck of a lot.
Completely. Honestly, that sounded more to me like a Democrat talking point. We know better how to raise your kids, how to conduct your affairs inside your family unit than you do, parents and kids. Now, I agree. There's people that are poor parents. No doubt about it. And that's a problem. And there's some people who, frankly, aren't fit to be parents and don't seem to understand just how privileged and what a privilege that is and how precious that is to be able to have children and raise them. That's another argument and another situation. But to say that that's a reason to lock people into a school based on their address, I'm sorry. I can't go along with that. Can't go along with that, really. Man, in fact, I'd actually be okay, not with public money here, with some private money to maybe stand up some organizations that could counsel parents if we had wide open school choice on how to choose the best school. Because there are people that maybe have a little more experience with that. Not a government program, I want to be clear about that. But I would certainly be willing to donate a little money to such a cause, such an effort, such an organization. But the bottom line is, I think the vast majority of people out there taking care of kids are responsible enough. Honestly, Rhino, the ones that the senator was referring to probably wouldn't take advantage of the program. You're shaking your head. I think you agree with me on that. So, all right, it's time for a break. Fox News, Super Talk News. Scott Burns is next.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays, Hour 3. The afternoon portion of the program is now live from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
We welcome now Scott Burns, co-founder of 7 Days for the Troops. Scott, good to see you. Been a few months since we were up in Tupelo for the big event you had up there.
It has been a few months, and we're still trying to work hard to help our veterans.
Yeah. I know that's what you do. You had Secretary of War Pete Hegseth into Tupelo, right, to be with your group.
We did for the Southern Salute to the Troops dinner, and as you and I were talking off air, like how do you our next year's event? how do you top that as your inaugural event?
As high as it goes, certainly in the military. So. Tell the folks again, share your story, Scott, how you got involved in this and why you're so passionate about our veterans, our troops, and what you're doing with this tower.
Well, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, did 4 years, 91 to 95. I got injured while I was in, had multiple surgeries on that injury, ended up having a leg amputated. But when I was sitting at home, 19 years ago and beating myself up because I really wanted to still be in the military and couldn't be in the military, I saw a story about these kids that were raising money to buy calling cards to send overseas. And I thought instead of sitting at home complaining because I couldn't be in the military, I could do something to help those that were. And so I built a tower out of scaffolding in the parking lot of the mall at Barnes Crossing in Tupelo and decided, I'm going to help these kids raise money. Mm-hmm. And that one-time event now is turned into 19 years later. We've raised right at $750,000, and we've given 100% of that away to help veterans by teaming up with organizations that already have programs in place. Our big collaboration right now is we formed a chapter in Mississippi for Purple Heart Homes, and what they do is they renovate houses, anything from wheelchair ramps to building tiny homes for veterans, and then we still have our mission of helping pay utility bills and other emergency funding needs for veterans.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you yourself are an amputee.
Correct.
Right? Tell us that story.
Well, I got injured training, ended up having 22 surgeries on my ankle, and got tired of taking pain pills. And so I had the left leg amputated right at 15 years ago, and did really well with that one, but I wore the right one out, had an ankle replacement done about 3 years ago that ended up getting infected, and so I had to have it amputated. But I tell people the Marine in me didn't like the fact that I wasn't uniformed, so I just went and had the other one cut off so that I would match.
Yeah.
But instead of just sitting at home and dwelling in my self-pity of what I can't do, and complaining about how the government's messed up and things like that when it comes to helping our veterans, I figured I would do a small part of what I could to help raise money to help fill those gaps.
I got you. So what are you hearing from our troops and our veterans? What do they need right now?
Well, it's weird that it's so hard to get medical care through the VA system.
I hear that a lot.
You've got to jump through 25 hoops to get, as an amputee. There's a certain point as an amputee that you need new prosthetics because they don't fit or there's something wrong. Well, I just went through the process where it took me 6 months to get a new prosthetic leg. Well, the problem with that is it's just in prosthetics. If you've got a issue with a prosthetic that is not fitting right and you continually to wear it and you continue to do your daily stuff and don't just sit at home and become fat and lazy, then it does more damage to other parts because you're using something that's not working right.
I got you.
And so I think our VA, a lot of veterans that I talk to feel like we would be better served if the VA hospital went away and we were allowed to go see our doctors in our own town, just basically like an insurance program. And I had the opportunity to meet with the Secretary of the VA in D.C. not 4 or 5 months ago, and he's kind of that same mindset as let's streamline the process and not make it so hard for veterans to get the care that they want. Because I'm going to be the one that sits here and says, I believe we have so many veteran suicides, not because our veterans are just mentally unstable, but they're in so much pain, they're hurting, and they get told so many times that the easy way out at that moment is to just give up. And so I think the system is broken, and I really do think that we could do something better than what we've got right now.
Well, weren't some changes made in President Trump's first administration to allow more access to private care?
There is, but the red tape that goes with that is I can have a doctor that tells me that I need to go see, a doctor about my back. And it literally takes about 6 months to get that approved.
Yeah.
A urologist, something that, if you're having a problem, they say, hey, you can go see a urologist in Tupelo. Well, by the time you get the approval, it's 3-4 months down the road. And
we got to fix that.
It's got to be fixed. You got 3 or 4 different people that's got to approve it, and then they got to schedule you an appointment. And it's the way the system is working. It's frustrating, and people give up because it's just too hard to get an appointment.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I'll go to the VA, but even at the VA hospital, it takes a couple of months to get in there. And then, like for me, I live in North Mississippi. I got to drive to Memphis to go to the VA. And so an hour and a half drive to go for an appointment that usually takes about 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense, and it's getting worse, not better. Mm-hmm. The community care program is great. except for the wait list and the time that it takes to get in to see a doctor, not because the doctors won't see you, but the red tape to get it done.
Okay. Well, have you been able to meet with our congressional delegation, our senators about this?
I have. Because one of the part of the system that is broken is I got injured before 9/11. Like, I got injured in 91. And there's a lot of programs out there for veterans that got hurt after 9/11 in the VA system. But a veteran, and like our Vietnam veterans and myself, the same injury that I have does not qualify me because I got hurt before 9/11,
okay,
but because I got hurt after 9/11. And I talked to Trent Kelly's office and Senator Wicker's office, and they're like, you've got to be misreading something. And I actually had it in writing where it stated, this is the guidelines if you got hurt before 9/11, this is the guidelines if you got hurt after that. Same injury, different qualifications.
Well, we'll see if we can get this interview to them and their staff, perhaps.
I've had an open door to Senator Wicker's office, not because I'm such a great guy, but I'm neighbors with Senator Wicker.
Okay.
I live 2 houses down, and so I'll approach him and I'll say, "Hey, is it okay if I contact your office?" And this is why I'm contacting him. And he's got an open door policy when it comes to helping veterans, but there's only so much that he can do by himself. But I believe that saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so I'm going to keep fighting. I may never see the change to benefit myself, but if I can help a veteran down the road, then that's what I'm shooting for.
Sure. What about any events you have coming up?
Well, tomorrow we are kicking off the 7 Days for the Troops event at the Outlets in Pearl, where I'm going to go on top of a tower and I'm going to camp out for 168 hours without coming down. And our goal is to raise right at $10,000 to help as many families over the holiday season as we can.
Okay.
Last year we were able to help over 20 kids, provide Christmas for them, like a full Christmas, all their Christmas toys and everything they needed. This year we want to do 40. But also on Veterans Day from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, thanks to Outback Steakhouse, we are going to be feeding veterans at the foot of my tower. They're at the Commons area, by the food court area at the Outlets. We're going to have entertainment out there all week. Matter of fact, we're kicking off tomorrow morning with a car show and a motorcycle escort in. But for the next 7 days, my mission is to just remind people that there's veterans out there that need help, and with the economy the way it is, every dollar matters.
And you're talking about the Outlets in Pearl.
The Outlets in Pearl.
Mississippi. Yeah, and that's my good friend Steve Grantham.
Yes, Steve
Outback.
Grantham.
Yeah.
He has been more than generous about helping us. Well, I know we're going to be able to feed at least 200 veterans, but I have a feeling if more show up, Steve is going to help us out.
I've known him for a long time, since college. He's a great friend and supporter, as you know, of our military.
And I want to encourage people, I'm going to make it easy. If somebody wants to say, hey, I want to donate to what you're doing, I want more information, give me a call, send me a text to 662-401-3349. I will answer those texts. I'll send you a link how to donate. And we also have a really cool raffle going on. So if you want to know more about the raffle, just text the word raffle and I'll send you that information too.
Scott Burns, thanks for coming in, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always love coming in.
Co-founder 7 Days for the Troops. Coming right back.
Hi, I'm Days with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
All right, so that number again for 7 Days for the Troops, 662-401-3349. So Scott's going to be up there on the tower. What did he say, 148 hours? That's a long time.
7 days.
Yeah, so it's a long time. It's 7 days for the troops. Man, he's passionate about it. We love having him on. And him describing the situations with the troops accessing health care, that hurts me, man. That's just ridiculous. That's government foul-up crap right there. That's what it is. You're crapping on the people you ought to be putting at the top of the damn list. That's just the truth. Now, Ryan, there are 400,000 employees. I looked this up in the Veterans Affairs Organization agency. That's the largest federal agency of all. We can't fix problems like that.
Welcome to probably the first time I started forming the notion of the not my problem. Because I had a friend in college who served in the first Gulf War that could barely lift one arm to level with his shoulder, let alone above his head.
Yeah.
And he was fighting to increase his percentage of disability from like 5% to 10%. And it was a fight to get it that far.
Meanwhile,
can't use one of his arms completely, but you're going to have to fight to get to 10% disability.
It's not my problem people, meanwhile, are declaring that somebody that says they get a headache every 3 months is disabled, and they're all of a sudden availed of the plethora, the bounty of benefits, right?
Because anytime you start taking a check from the government, and the government is your boss, there's I guess it's human nature because it's so prevalent across every single governmental entity. Some people are just going to become a knot on a log.
Unbelievable. That's just wrong. Well, it's a bit timely for me, and I'll tell you why. I was at my weekly breakfast with my political friends yesterday, and an ex-employee, former employee that worked for my company, used to be in our Baton Rouge location, has since moved up here. He's a veteran, and he sadly has developed cancer, and he's seeking treatment. And there's some complexity about what he's getting treated for and getting the VA to pay for it and so forth. So I did, in fact, contact our congressional folks about helping him. And I saw him yesterday, and I asked him what the status was. He says, man, they just keep pushing back. And I don't think that's because that my congressmen haven't looked into it, probed it, investigated it, working on it. I just think the dang bureaucracy is so strong and so hard to penetrate. I really do. Like I've said so many times, it's the faceless bureaucrats in the agencies that run our damn lives. And that's particularly the case when you're sick and you need something that I believe you're entitled to, wearing our country's uniform. That's just ridiculous, man.
But whether or not you are served in a timely or professional fashion does not determine whether or not that person, the not my problem bureaucrat, that doesn't have any bearing on whether or not they get their check and get to go home and be perfectly content.
Sadly.
So
that's
they
absolutely
couldn't
true.
give a rat's rear end.
That is sadly the case. I hate to see and hear that. So 662-401-3349 if you want to help the 7 Days for the Troops effort, benefiting our troops, of course. Casey says, thank you. Everything you said is so true. We were talking about having our interview yesterday with Senator Bryce Wiggins and what the senator said about parents making choices on behalf of their student children and where he stood on that, talking about school choice. And then, of course, Casey's the one that I said that brought our attention to the woke nut content and policies and standards of the American School Counselors Association. It's almost as if they really don't, like I said, don't care about what their mission should be, which is to guide the counseling, the practice of counseling, issue guidance to counselors so that they can provide legitimate, valuable counseling to students. No, it's more about pushing a social justice agenda.
Well, that's the saddest part, is the vast majority of those touchy-feely, worthless pieces of crap really sincerely believe they are benefiting society because we're building a better tomorrow.
That is true.
We're having a more inclusive and more welcoming and more loving and more fairy tale-like tomorrow. Don't you see that?
Oh, man.
Because they don't live in reality.
Unbelievable. Walt Davis says on the C Spire text line, I just started as an account executive at working for us at SuperTalk. Is that what you mean? Okay. It took me 19 years to get mine shot and blown up multiple times. Yeah. Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. But yet, again, we're quick to, as I said, dole out benefits to those who are often not at all deserving. They're scamming the system, or certainly shouldn't be prioritized over those who got blown up. My gosh. Is there anything that's more obvious than that?
Well, I mean, that's kind of apples and oranges, but even within the VA system, you have people that never saw combat, that stayed on base or in an office the entire time they served the country, and they'll find a way to have anxiety, and they'll have VA benefits, while people that were shot and blown up are having a hard time getting their VA benefits.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of screwed up all over the place.
Man. It is a microcosm of what a single-payer plan would look like on the 601 Donald in Oxford. I was a medical device rep for years, sold to VAs in Jackson, Memphis, Little Rock, and Shreveport. It is exactly how your guest described it. It is horrible. That just breaks my heart. Shouldn't be that way. Really shouldn't. We need to do something about it. Simple as that. Oh, man. Let's see. Man from Madison says, great point, Rhino. The bad parents won't be taking advantage of education freedoms. Yeah, he and I talked about that off the air as well. It's something we've said a million times, and nothing new, that the very people, because I particularly believe that a major factor in the pushback is race. I just do. And I think there's a fear that the mostly white schools would be invaded by black kids that aren't performing very well in the classroom. And my belief is that it's the ones that do perform well, that are they come from families where their homes are functional and nurturing. I think that's largely the reason why they are performing well. They would seek better options, those parents, those caretakers, for their student children. Sadly, it's the ones who are performing well that I happen to think could, if you look behind the scenes, you'd find out they come from dysfunctional homes in many cases. That's a separate issue that needs to be addressed. I don't think they would have any interest. I'm not saying across the board. I'm generalizing a bit. I admit that. But I think it's the ones that are, in fact, raising their children in a nurturing environment, home environment, that are more likely to be concerned about, hey, what's the best education setting for my child? The fear-mongering, I think, is excessive at a minimum and not really grounded in fact. And I absolutely believe that, on the other hand, that maybe those who, including me, who promote and believe in and completely support school choice, nobody's out there saying, oh, wow, this would like dramatically improve this, that, and the other. I happen to believe it would, but I'm going to say again, I know some people get mad at me, that's irrelevant. It's not irrelevant that we don't want good education outcomes. That's totally 100% irrelevant. What's relevant is letting people choose and giving them freedom always is better and produces better outcomes than government restrictions. So open it up and let the chips fall where they may, just like we do in the private sector and everything else. So apply a little private sector process and private sector principles to educating our children. I believe that would provide by far the best overall outcomes. If you choose to enroll your child in a school that you think is in their best interest, and you're disappointed with the results and you don't see it paying off, well, then make a choice and go somewhere else. Simple as that. In that way, we buy stuff for the most part. It's like anti-capitalism, honestly, to oppose school choice. Coming right back.
From the Seabrook. Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio. The NASDAQ and the Dow have pared their losses a bit. Still a big time down on the day, however. And the funny money's up, $1,487 at this point in time. It's about $102,000. So I'm not sure what's driving this reversal of losses on today. Might be some news out there, but, there's a lot of resistance is what the investment community refers to it when you start to see the price of stocks fall into a territory where there are lots of people who bought it. It tends to be a line of resistance where they will sort of double down. That's what will happen when it hits that point, and that props the stock up. But on the C-Spire text line, Larry and Mize says, I can't believe you didn't call out Bryce Wiggins yesterday when he said most parents don't know what's best for their children. Well, first, Larry, he didn't say most. He just said that there are certainly some that he's witnessed in youth court and so forth. And he tried to, I say tried because I didn't buy it. He promoted that. How about that? As a reason that it might not make sense. He was a kind of non-committal rhino, I'd say, on both sides. He just said, I'd have to see some legislation first. But the takeaway I took from that comment that Larry and Mize is pointing out is that he feels like that allowing parents to make those decisions would be perhaps detrimental to the well-being of the child, that you need to go to the school that you're assigned to. The parents could make the wrong decision, whatever that is exactly, and enroll their children in a school other than the one the government has said you got to go to. I can't ever see how that produces better outcomes, honestly. So, Larry, it happened late in the show. I was talking to Rhino about this, if you recall, yesterday, and really it got away from me, but he'll be back on, I promise. And certainly at a minimum, when the session gets cranked up, all this is going to be front and center down there at the Capitol, and we'll have folks on and talking to him about it. But I disagree with him, certainly, wholeheartedly. As you can tell, that it doesn't make sense to say the government knows better what to do with respect to managing the affairs of your household, including where your children should go to school. I completely reject that idea. Man. So Kevin from Brandon says, I don't know why y'all are so hard on the government and the VA. I mean, going to the post office and the DMV is always fast, efficient, and always fun. So the DMV, I have to say, actually does do pretty well, a revamping of those systems and processes. I got to give them high marks in that category, Kevin. I've personally experienced that, getting driver's license renewed. I would agree with you. There was a time where it was grossly inefficient, and it seemed like all the people that worked there were mad all the time. And the post office, the good news there is we have invested heavily in automated systems there. So most everything you need to do is self-service and fairly efficient. But I hear you. I do remember the days when I was growing up with my parents, and you'd have to go to the post office to mail parcels, and you'd stand in line, and it just seems like they were always grumpy, and it was very slow. And that's doing the same thing over and over and over again. So you can imagine what it's like when you're dealing with cases like our troops that are sick, our veterans that are sick, that all have unique circumstances that need somebody that has some ability to discern, has some judgment skills, and some compassion to join and combine with that to take care of these precious veterans and our troops, man. Simple as that. But I hear you. Oh, let's see here. What else we got going on the C Spire text line? What is the breakdown of state, local, and federal that go to a school district? And if a child does have free choice, what money follows the child to the parent's choice? Good. What funds? Yeah, good question. Thank you for asking that. We've discussed it before, but always worth bringing to the forefront again. So you're right. 3 sources of funds to schools, school districts, to educate our children in the public schools. And that primarily comes from the state. I'm trying to think of the breakdown right now. You and I looked it up. It's been a few months. I want to say it's 20-something percent, 20-something percent from the local level, 30-some-odd percent from the federal government, and the remaining, it's in the 40% range, 40 to 50% range, comes from the state. So, and it differs from district to district based on our laws, based on lots of factors across the schools, especially after we revamp the funding formula at the state level, but also their required pitch-in contribution from local funds. That's your ad valorem taxes. What do you see? Am I close in the range there?
Yeah, the average across the country is sitting at states contribute 45% of K through 12 funding. Local governments provide 43%, and the federal government contributes approximately 13%.
Okay, so I think at the state in Mississippi, if you'll look that up for me, because it is based on our income. I think in Mississippi we receive the highest. In
Mississippi, it's 44% from the state, 32% from local, and 23% from the federal government.
Right. So I thought one was 30 and one was 20, and I think I may have had them backwards. But nonetheless, as you can see, though, the 23% from the federal exceeds by almost double the amount that the federal government contributes across the rest of the country on average. And that's because the way that formula works is based on poverty. And I've said a million times, number one problem in the state of Mississippi is poverty. And this kind of bears that out in that. But nearly 50% of it, right, comes from state funds, to answer the question.
44.1% to be precise.
Okay, so a little less than 50%. And some districts get more than others as a percentage, but that's the average across the state. So that's the way it works. And so we're only talking about, with respect to school choice, the state portion. That 45% portion is what would follow the child to a different school setting, such as to a private school.
And I hate, as much as I hate to have to continue pointing this out, that child would no longer be a financial obligation for the school they're leaving. So
right.
I don't really see the logic in whinging and moaning and complaining about, we're losing money. Yeah, and you're also losing an obligation.
Right. Yeah. So you're not obligated, as you say, to teach, to educate that student. Yeah. Now, what that tells you is that you got lots
of... They're not actually concerned about the education or welfare of that student. That student is simply a number, and a number that piles up to mean more money.
Bingo, yes, correct. That I wasn't going to say that, but that absolutely is a factor. There's no doubt about it. They panic. Oh, my gosh, we're losing that money. Right.
That's why I'm here. I say the mean stuff.
But you don't have the student that's going to be walking the halls of your school, sitting in the seats in your classroom, consuming the time and resources and assets of teachers and other resources involved in the education process. They tend to leave that part of the equation out. But that's absolutely true. On the other hand, the receiving school, who gets the state funds, you may say at that point has to, of course, make up for or cover the local and federal cost. Yeah, but actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the federal cost, I'm not sure how much it affects that. But I know at the local level, this is why legislation such as that which Representative Jansen Owen authored this past session had a fund, a $5 million fund that would be available to tap by the receiving schools, the so-called transfer-E schools, to cover those costs, those local costs, should that be an issue. That's what that was created for. And I think there would be, honestly, this is another situation where I'd like to see the private sector step up and perhaps make some contribution or stand up some sort of fund to help with that part of the local funding part of an education. That'd work for me. But, you know, here's the problem, Rhino, and I know you'll love this. It's another situation rather than, like the liberals point out all the time, rather than being creative and innovative in devising solutions to these challenges, it's just, no, you can't do that, you got to do without. That's always the response. It's always the position rather than, no, this would be a good thing. Here are the challenges. Well, let's go figure out how to mitigate those. That's what we do. Man, oh man. We got the final segment coming up on Middays next.
Strong hand. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
The wind blew some luck in my direction. I caught it in my hands today. Finally made a tricky French connection. You winked and gave me your okay. I'll take you on a trip beside the ocean and drop the top of Chesapeake Bay. Ain't nothing like the sky to dose a potion. The moon will send you on your way. Feels right.
Bruce Blackman, Starbuck, that band formed in 1974 in Atlanta, Georgia. And Bruce, let's see, was he born in Mississippi? I know he has some strong ties to the great state of Mississippi. That's him, by the way, on the lead vocals. Bruce Blackman always had the what would that be, Rhino? Would that be a beret or a tam? The hat that he always wears there?
I think that's technically a beret.
Okay. Yeah, Bruce Blackman. Of course, interesting song. Don't know what the idea behind the tune was. It's kind of a story he tells, right, about a relationship he's developing up there, Chesapeake Bay, Maryland, the D.C. area. But there's, of course, a lyric that includes my alma mater, Ole Miss. You say you came to Baltimore from Ole Miss. The class of 7-4 gold ring, he says. That's a good one.
Yeah, he was born in Greenville.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was a Delta. Yep.
Mississippi State.
All right, awesome. It's a cool song. You know, not many rock songs, certainly that made it up the charts, have a xylophone in them, right? That's what that is, that musical instrument that we hear, isn't it? Because I've seen them. I've seen videos of them performing it live. That's the instrument you play with sticks with a round.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember if it's technically a xylophone or if it's one of the other. I'm drawing a blank, but there's like 4 different
like keyboard type instruments.
Well, no, it's the same basic principle where you have different lengths.
Okay.
And you hit them with mallets, but xylophone is specific to a certain type of material of different lengths.
Okay.
I'm going blank on it.
I just looked it up.
My like 3rd grade music class is failing me.
Marimba.
There you go.
It's a marimba. So
not technically a xylophone.
That's exactly right. They're similar, according to what I'm reading here, but distinct instruments. A marimba uses wooden bars, while a xylophone has wooden bars with a harsher sound. They say that it's wooden bars with a resonance tube on the marimba. That kind of makes sense, given the sound.
And then there's one that's purely metallic, and I think Blue Man Group invented the one with the different length of pipes that you play with paddles.
Makes sense, yeah. How cool. So, little trivia there for you. It's the marimba. And this one is considered, in some circles, as one of the greatest marimba solos ever recorded. How about that? Who would have thought to put that in a rock song?
Vibraphone is the other one.
Okay. So xylophone, marimba, and vibraphone. There we go. We need to get one of those in the house band.
Vibraphone is the one with the more metallic, hollow sound.
Gotcha. The instrument I like is the steel guitar. Now, I'm kind of lesser crazy about the steel guitar when it gets a little twangy in the country songs, but in some it sounds really good. And one in particular is, what's the doobie? South City Midnight Lady. There is a steel guitar in that song, Doobie Brothers song, and it is awesome. And there's a video of them when they played it not too terribly long ago because it's HD, and it certainly wasn't when they were in their prime in the 70s, but it's really good. And it features a steel guitar. Guys, one of the members of the Doobie Brothers, his name escapes me, but he's one of the original members forever. He can really play that thing. It's unbelievable. Let's see, D from Tupelo says, a mailman here, post office always gets blamed, and yes, there's problems everywhere, but I've yet to hear someone complain about getting the wrong number on a phone call. Do people think to call the phone company and ask where their phone call went when they were supposed to go? So I'll tell you, D, I haven't had any issues with the post office. And either if I'm dealing with them in person in the rare situations where I have to, or in just their duties at my house, I find them to do a great job, and it's pretty rare that I ever get something I wasn't supposed to, or someone gets something that belongs to me, honestly. It seemed to be more common in my younger days, and I think that's just a function of the automation and the tools we have to keep things better sorted and straight. So, but I think there was a time, Rhino, and again, when I was a kid, when you had to do a lot of business in person with the post office, and you'd have these long lines that, as you would approach them, and that'd probably make anybody grumpy, honestly.
And for the people asking, a glockenspiel is different from a vibraphone because the glockenspiel does not have a sustain.
There you go. Okay. We got some other text here. We can't get to them. I see the Islander Lodge. I'll try to get to it Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Until then, stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.